Hi all, Knife Edge UK here. Today we're going to look at a relatively sort of recently released knife. So this is going to be a bit more of a genuine review rather than just an overview like some of the custom stuff tends to be. So what we got here? Well, this is the Quiet Carry Drift. This is the new revised version. The Drift originally came with a finger hole or a thumb hole or whatever you want to call it in the blade. This one is a thumb stud version. So before we go any further, let's quickly put it against a few other knives for the sake of size comparison. Okay, so firstly we'll put it next to a large Sebenza 21. As you can see, it's not a particularly big knife at all. Then we'll put it next to a Spyderco Capara. As you can see, it's considerably smaller than the Capara as well. We'll put it next to another really nice slicey knife, which is very much what this Drift is, in the TRM, Three Rivers Manufacturing Neutron 2, or Neutron. And do we really need any more? No, we don't, do we? Basically, what we're looking at here, we'll put a ruler in, why not? What we're looking at here is a, near as makes no difference, 3-inch blade, and about 3 3/4 inch handle. So, all the specs, incidentally, will be on the Quiet Carry site, so you probably don't need me to tell you. So, this is, I say, by Quiet Carry. They're a US company. I think most of their knives are manufactured for them in Taiwan, based off of their designs. There's a number of different versions of this that have gone live on their website recently. You can get the same handle with a satin, a horizontal, or rather a vertical belt satin blade. You can get a knurled textured handle with the satin blade or this stonewash blade. You can get this total stonewashed one. The Drift is a knife that I've always found quite interesting, or when it first came out I found it quite interesting. There were a few things that reviewers criticised that have been addressed on this version, and obviously the big change that they've made is that they've removed the hole in the blade and replaced it with a thumb stud. There's other little details, like there's a bit more access to the lock bar now, and I can't actually remember what the other changes were, but overall those things have been addressed. So yeah, you've got the selling point of this knife and quite a few of Quiet Carry's range are that this is about as corrosion resistant as a folding knife gets. Obviously you've got titanium, that doesn't corrode, basically full stop. You've got marine grade titanium hardware, titanium or marine grade steel, I can't remember. You've got an LC200N lock bar insert, which obviously is that's what you'll find on things like the Spidey Chef and a lot of the Salt series knives from Spyderco, so very corrosion resistant. And then a Vanax or Vanax Super Clean Vanax 37 blade up front. And also marine resistant hardware in terms of the thumb stud and everything as well, and the same with the pocket clip, bent wire pocket clip. Vanax is an incredible steel. Really, you only generally saw it on some of the older Shirogorovs, like the old Shirogorov Hati and things like that. It's not a steel that we see enough of by a long chalk. It's a little bit better in every area than LC200N. Particularly, it's better in terms of edge retention. I'm not sure if it's as tough as LC200N, but it's certainly tough enough. It's a very nicely balanced steel, and it's massively corrosion resistant. It takes a beautiful, clean, quite grabby edge. It certainly has a slightly sort of carbide-y feel when you touch the edge. It's very nice, and it's just an excellent steel. And combined with the other kind of party piece of this knife being that the blade stock is very thin. So to give you an idea, another knife with very thin blade stock would be this Three Rivers Manufacturing Neutron, and if anything, I mean they're probably the same. I think they're probably the same. I should get a set of calipers out and check, but as near as damn it, they're very, very similar. And it's in the knife world, there are not many, outside of traditional knives, old school slip joints and things like that. There are not many knives that have blades this thin, and as a result of that, and the very high flat. It's almost a full flat grind with only a tiny bit of flat up the top there. It's a very slicey blade. I've used this quite a bit already, and yeah, it's very, very slicey. It's not. It's not that it's ultra thin behind the edge. It's not that it comes down to an ultra thin edge. It does by virtue of the fact that it's a very thin blade. The actual grind itself, I felt thinner. You can see at the back here. It's not the thinnest grind in the history of the world, but it doesn't really matter. And you could argue that perhaps you don't want it to be for the sake of a bit of extra robustness. But it's a very, very good grind. It works extremely well. It's extremely slicey, and you can put it to work very happily. It's a cardboard destroyer, and it strops back very well indeed as well. I used this on quite a number of boxes recently when I was breaking stuff down from the recycling, and it dealt with it really, really well. It lost its absolute peak sharpness, but it came back with a few licks on a denim strop, and it was back to being exactly how it was before. It's lightly milled on the inside, just with round pockets to take a bit of weight out of the knife, which is really nice. You also have these little dots, which are kind of a quiet carry theme on the handle. Really, really nice stonewash, quite a reflective stonewash on the handles. It works really, really well. It's a nice finish. It's not the grippiest finish in the history of the world, but I don't think it's, if you're going to use this, in a genuinely wet environment, you might want to go with the knurled version instead. Personally, I like this version more, but it's a matter of taste from that point of view, and it probably is a little bit more grippy in more extreme environments. It's a titanium frame lock, as I mentioned. Lockup's very good. Lock geometry is very good. It has that LC200 insert. Works really, really well. Action is very nice. This is running on phosphor bronze washers, and thumb stud deployment is beautifully snappy. It's got a lovely pop on the detent, so if I let the pressure build up, it will just jump. It doesn't have that sensation that I'm pushing the blade. It has the sensation of me breaking the detent, which is often a nice thing on a thumb stud knife. Reverse flick on this is basically perfect. I don't imagine that the whole version was any easier to reverse flick, so this is kind of the best of both worlds, because this will undoubtedly be easier to thumb deploy, but I don't think you've lost anything with reverse flicking. You literally just put your finger, let me see if I can get the angle, in the groove, and it will go. It's very easy. Just slow rolling it out. The detent's nicely set, so it's not too hard. You can slow roll it easy enough. Closing action, this is a very light blade, but it's, to be honest, I mean, it's smooth enough that it's okay. It's not bad at all. You can shake it shut with one hand without problem and just slow press it back, and it's very smooth and consistent throughout. Now the detent ball is broken in across the blade. Negatives. Ergonomically, the knife is nice. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't call it amazing in hand, but it's not bad. It feels a little bit empty at this end, but it's not problematic. It's quite nice. One negative would be that because this is such a fine blade, and you have kind of relative, basically 50% of that finger choil area is the ground portion of the blade. You can see it's very, very thin. So if you're going to bear down on this knife and use it for a long period of time in the forward choil, I mean, it creates a pretty aggressive hotspot very quickly in there. It's a minor thing. It's really not a big deal. Other negatives, there aren't many. I can just about see a little bit of the original grind underneath the stonewash, like through the stonewash finish. It's not completely eradicated the grind, but only in certain lights and only if I'm looking. Tiny thing, not a big deal, not something that would put me off this knife at all. My biggest detractor for this knife is the quality. The hardware is really nice quality, but it's quite shallow in terms of its tooling. So when you take this knife down, do take care not to put too much torque onto it. When this one first came to me, this screw was very, very, very tight, and it started to strip almost instantly. I disassemble a ton of knives for customers when I'm tuning knives or when I'm sharpening them and putting them back together and in my own collection. It was very, very resistant. I think it had been cross-threaded originally. Quiet Carry would dispute that, but I think it was probably cross-threaded. I don't believe the previous owner, who's a good friend of mine, had ever taken it down, so I have no reason to believe at all that we've done tons and tons and tons of deals. I have total faith in him. That it was in slightly strangely. It wasn't caked in Loctite when I eventually did get it out, but I basically had to destroy the screw to remove it. again, you could say, well, why take it on the knife? Well, I think a knife should be disassemblable, and really just making that deeper would probably have done the trick, even with the problem with the screw. I contacted Quiet Carry. They were quick to get back to me. The communication was good. Via Instagram, they were a little bit strange, but it wasn't really a problem. Via email, it was all sorted. They did charge me for a new pivot screw and barrel. I don't think they believed that there was any problem with the knife. I think it could have been handled a little bit better. I'm not saying that it was bad, because it wasn't, and I am very, very picky with customer service in my own business and everything else. It's a really important thing to me. So it's not how I would have handled the situation, but it wasn't bad by the standards of customer service generally. They got me sorted out. They got a new pivot to me really rather quickly from the US to the UK, but I should tell you all, because that did happen, and it's a thing. Now the knife's back together again. It's one that I'm going to carry a lot. I really, really like it. Putting it against something which in my collection is a really close comparator, and something that would be, maybe a battle, which one I prefer. Visually, I think the Quiet Carry is far, far, far prettier. They're both exceptionally good slicers, and they're both really, really well made knives. Obviously, the TRM's made entirely in the US, so if that's important to you, that's a thing to bear in mind. But overall, they're both excellent knives, and it'll be, you can't really go wrong with either. If corrosion resistance is a huge thing to you, obviously the Quiet Carry is the one to go for. If full titanium's important to you, obviously the Quiet Carry. If customization is important to you, maybe the TRM. But they both have great detents, they both have fantastic slicey blades, and they're both really, really well made. So there you go, guys. That's the Quiet Carry Drift in its new form. It's a very recommendable knife. Be careful when you're disassembling it, because the screws are both a smidge soft and not very deeply tooled, but Quiet Carry will look after you if something does go wrong. I am confident about that, at least. So thank you very much, guys. Really nice knife. Grab one if you can, because, yeah, I do really like them. Take care. Bye-bye.